Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm really honored that you have come along for us on this journey as together we're going through the book of 1 Corinthians. My name is Al Westerman, I'm the youth pastor at Living Hope Church, and this is a lot of fun for me. I love seeing the interaction, I love seeing the comments, I read all the comments, so grateful for that for sure. Last week we were looking at 1 Corinthians 6, and in 1 Corinthians 6 we were talking about how even in Paul's day there were disputes and there were arguments amongst believers, which maybe can give us some comfort in knowing that even at the best of times Christians can sometimes butt heads. And that said, we still have this amazing opportunity that when we're focused on the right things, when we're focused on lifting each other up, being united around Christ and the gospel and preaching the good news and helping our fellow brother or sister, we have this amazing example. And when the world sees us in that context, they want what we have. So that was part of what we were talking about last week in 1 Corinthians 6. Today we're talking about 1 Corinthians 7. 1 Corinthians 7 is an awesome chapter. It is probably one of the longest chapters. There is a lot packed in there, and so it'd be really hard for me to go through it all. There's a lot that I'm leaving out. Know that I love it, and I love hearing what you guys have to say about it. So we're going to start off by talking about the first couple verses. It starts off giving some ideals, and what it says is, "Now for the matters you wrote about, it is good for a man not to marry. But since there is so much immorality, each of you should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband." Pretty simple verses there. A lot of controversy around them, but they're also fairly simple. These are the shoulds, these are the ideals. This is what we stand for. We can talk more about that, but I just wanted to highlight it. I'll bring up verse 4 very briefly. I'm not going to say what the verse is. You can look it up. It's a great verse. I had it actually plastered all over my house, printed off around 15 times, and it's just like on every wall of our house. So that is great. I'm going to go down now to verse 8 and 9. Now, to the unmarried widows I say, it is good for them to remain unmarried as I am, but if they cannot control themselves, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Now, I'm only saying this as a springboard in that an amazing, absolutely amazing sermon series I heard was by Stephen Furtick of Elevation Church, and he was talking, one of the sermons in that was Marry or Burn. It's better to marry than it is to burn with passion. And his sermon title is Marry or Burn. This is vintage Stephen Furtick. This is before he had his beard or his new hairstyle and all this stuff. It's a couple years old. It is absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't recommend it more. Marry or Burn, Stephen Furtick. As we go on to verses 13 and 14, it says, it's talking about divorce, and it's talking about the complications that come with that, and how the ideal is either to remain unmarried, or a man marries a woman, woman marries a man, singular. Not the ideal is divorce. Now, this is a very complicated, very tricky subject, and I want to encourage investigating at least. Not that I necessarily agree with everything that he says, but Chris Valentin of Bethel Church does a really good job of laying this out there. I think it balances grace and truth amazingly. It is absolutely fantastic. The link will be in the description. And I would highly recommend listening to that, especially if you have been divorced, and I'm sure many of you have been who are listening, or several of you. But even if you haven't, it's a very interesting perspective, and I would love to encourage you to look into that. Now, where I want to spend the rest of our time today is talking about the other command that Paul gives. So Paul is talking that everyone should stay in the position where they were. If they were married and their spouse is a non-believer, that doesn't mean they need to divorce them. And that's actually how important this was to them. That they would, if they became a Christian, they would think, well, our values are so much different now. I need to divorce this person. And what Paul's saying is, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you became a Christian after you got married, stay in it. Stay in it for the long haul. Now, we want to be careful with what Paul is saying and with what Paul is not saying. Paul is not saying that you should date someone or be with someone who holds different values to you, values than you, so that you can change them. That's not what Paul is saying. That is a very, very dangerous area. I've known a bunch of people who have done this, and no one, I don't think any of them are glad that they did. It has turned out poorly for all of them. Relational evangelism in the dating or marriage context with the idea of, well, this person will change eventually, leads to disappointment. There are two of the main things in this category, and this is my encouragement, my word for those who are unmarried, is two of the most important areas you want to have aligning values are religion, what your religious beliefs are, and the other is children. Now, if one of you wants to have 2 kids, the other wants to have 4, you can work that out. But if one of you wants to have 0 kids and the other of you wants to have 6, don't think that person is going to change later on. It's unfair to you and it's unfair to them. Or if you want to have 0 kids and they want to have 6, that's a massive red flag. Seriously reevaluate that. And this religious thing is the exact same thing. If you go into a relationship, or you go worse, you go into a marriage with the expectation that you're going to change someone, that someone is going to change for you, you are going to be disappointed almost every single time. Now, don't look at that almost that I said and say, I'm going to be the exception to the rule. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I do want to save you from future harm. I do want to save you from future heartache on a scale that you can't imagine. Pluck out the weeds while they're small weeds, not while they're taking over your entire garden, right? I hope that doesn't sound heartless. I don't mean it heartless. I want to help.